Hello, we're doing this again. This time, we're going to talk about Arcane, and we do have to redo this because our audio has glitched, but that's fine. We just need to speed things up a little. So we have two very lovely guests with us today. We have Andrew and Pat. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yo, I
Hello.
am Andrew. I like this show a lot. And yep, I'm American.
Are you
I'm
actually Andrew?
Allegedly, yes.
I am Pat. I also like the show, but I am British. Let's go.
British.
One character flaw.
Uh,
Okay, so
Based on what
we're
change
going
it.
to start off with the prologue, and then we're going to talk about the characters, and because they all influence things a lot, then we can probably just cover the plot by talking about the characters because that's relevant.
Yeah. Okay. So
Alright.
as Hannah said, what happens in the show? So it's really difficult to talk about it in a linear fashion, but we'll start off by talking about the prologue because that it introduces us to three very core characters in the story, and we'll talk about the characters from there essentially, just in whatever order seems fit. But there's also a lot of important stuff like to do with like theme, like narrative, and the production in the opening that we can talk about. So yeah, I guess we'll start. I'll let Andrew start because of what you have to say about the dear friend across the river. So you go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so we start off by we see lots of these very stone cold faces etched into the side of the bridge, and while we hear the song "Dear Friend Across the River" that Powders is singing to herself while she hides her eyes from the horrors going on while being led by Vi. And so this lullaby is built on the relationship of Piltover and Zon, or the Undercity, and it's pretty much it reads like a lullaby that's been passed down through generations from the Piltover side to the Zon side, written obviously by the Piltover people, because it sounds like what Piltover thinks of itself rather than what they actually are. Because excuse me, because this song is very opposite of what's actually going on. Because at this moment in time, which is a big moment for everyone involved. It's even there's even candles lit on the bridge after this. At this moment in
In
time,
memory.
the the people of Zon have reached out their hand for help, and Piltover has said no and shot them where they stand on the bridge. The bridge being a very significant uh, the bridge is very significant imagery for this idea of Zon and Piltover coming together, because every time that we are on the bridge, something happens between Piltover and Zon in their relationship. And it even this song comes back later, but we'll get to that when we
Yeah,
do.
we'll save that for next. Is it a few episodes? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
So
so
go ahead,
do we
Hannah.
want to introduce the characters on
I
this
Yeah,
guess
bridge?
we
so
can. Let's. Should we start with? Um.
well
Let's
we can
start
just
with.
we can just start by talking about how
Or I start
Powder
with
and Vi
Vi,
got
I don't
there.
know, since she's like the main character.
I guess
So
let's start with Powder for this scene because
Oh, wait,
I
which
guess
scene
start
again?
off the prologue scene
yeah,
on
the
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 bridge.
prologue.
prologue.
So one thing I want to say already, when you rewatch the show, first thing you might notice is that this is even from this point, Powder is hallucinating. We see the drawings, like the almost like the digital noise or like
Yeah, the
film grain
glitches
look.
almost.
Yeah, the glitchy imagery, the like jumpy, jagged editing, and like with the enforcer as well. When he guns down a undercity civilian, and he's reloading. It's in slow mo, almost as if like it kind of not necessarily glorify it, but like just make him like look like terrifying against like all the red smoke and everything. And during this moment, with her powder's drawing hallucinations, it creates like an evil, like devilish smile on the enforcer's face,
Yeah.
which tells us a lot about how she views them as like the boogeyman, essentially, and like these demons that just hate the Undercity. Um,
Mhm.
there's a lot to be said between like the differing representations of the enforcers between Undercity characters and characters in Piltover, but for now, it's very clear the Undercity really do not like enforcers, and this is in like the first 30 seconds of the show, and we already know that from that single image. So yes, good stuff already. Essentially, this Powder is very clearly she's too young to understand what's going on around her, but all she knows is all she's gonna know is she's basically following what Vi is telling her to do, and like sticking with her because she is terrified even if she doesn't quite know what's happening, and Vi
Mhm.
has to like look after her. But this is essentially what I think the show is saying is this is where everything started to go wrong for her. Like this was the catalyst. Like this was the inciting incident, if you will, for her downfall and spiral into becoming Jinx. So,
Yeah,
which makes sense considering
and
she is orphaned at
even
this point in time.
and even a neat part is when Vi comes across their dead mother. Vi is the first one to cry, even though she very much does not want to in front of Powder. But Powder has an interesting
Yes.
reaction to it. She doesn't cry off the bat. She almost
She
looks to Vi for confirmation that this is a right time to cry.
Yeah,
Um,
and she doesn't even start crying anyway. She goes to hug Vi because she sees that Vi is sad. She doesn't quite understand why Vi is so upset, but she goes to hug her because that's like her realization of, oh, this is bad. I need to hug my sister and I'm sad now.
I
Like,
know this time around we skipped over the discussion of the visuals, but yeah, that's another strength of the
oh
show.
yes,
The
Vi. So
expressions.
yes, Vi. I want to talk. Let's just talk about like Vi in this scene because essentially this scene immediately tells you, okay, yeah, she cared. Like these two people, these two sisters, they care deeply for one another, and literally the first sign of this happens off screen. We don't see it, but we already know it happened. Like the first time we see Vi and Powder going across the bridge, Powder has her hands like covering her, like holding her hand over her eyes so that she doesn't see anything. And from that, we can just assume that Vi told her to do that because, of course, they're going to come across probably some really unsettling, very dangerous environment, lots of unsettling, very traumatic things that they'll see. And, Vi's just trying to protect her from that and, make sure that she doesn't see what Vi sees. Um, and also we can also assume that she told Powder to sing that song, almost as if like to try and an attempt to drown out the sounds of people being killed in the distance, like all the screaming, all the gunfire, all the
yeah.
explosions. But also maybe to like alert like any like nearby enforcers, maybe that there are children nearby, so that they'd be
Mhm.
less likely to like shoot at them as well. So that again, all off screen, we don't see Vi doing any of this, but we can just make these assumptions based on Powder singing and covering her eyes. So already from there, it's like okay, so Vi is looking out for her. But more explicit example would be when they see Vander for the first time and they can't quite make him out because he's in like the smoke and his appearance is like masked by everything.
Mhm.
And so Vi initially like presumes he's a threat, and so she pushes like Powder behind her and gets in front of her as they back away. Again, like trying to protect her. But then yeah, when she sees mum and sees her dead mum on the bridge, and this is one of the moments in the show that I didn't cry while watching this, but this nearly did get me. This is one of the most emotional parts of the show for me, where she is
Yeah.
desperately trying not to cry because she doesn't want because she just doesn't want to worry Powder because Powder
Mhm.
won't know what's happening, but she's gonna like figure out that something bad has happened if like Vi looks weak. So she's desperately trying to hold back tears. And yeah, Noach, if you want to gush about the facial expressions, now's your time,
It's
bud.
so good, my god.
So good.
I don't know what
They
else
are
to say about it. It's just like
they are peak. Well, I'd just say they're very detailed, and something that I found out, ironically, by EFAP's coverage of the show, is that the characters, like their eyes move, like very microscopically. Like the animators decided to
Mhm.
there's a word for it, it's like saccades or something, but like the eye micro movements. And when you
Yeah.
pay attention, yeah, there's never a shot where the characters' eyes are completely static. They're always like moving, even just a tiny bit, and it just helps make them look so alive. And other
there's a
small
great
details like
facial
that.
detail I want to talk about, but it happens in episode 6. So
Uh,
I'll be saving that for
there are
next
plenty
episode.
of shots like that. Don't worry, yeah.
I'll be saving
So
it for
But yeah,
Facial
Essentially-
animation is a big one for me because it's like the best way to understand a character is by their facial reaction to any given event, which is sometimes hard for me when watching animation. Maybe an animation style just doesn't have a lot of facial animations, which is
Yeah.
fine. It's just not my preference. This like
This show,
even
yeah.
like you even have the scene where Milo's getting yelled at, and it's like, this is the face that I will always make when it's time to shut up. And then
Yeah.
she just starts pointing at herself, and there's like 5 different expressions in that,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like just frustration, and it's just it's so good, especially with Powder, with Vi, especially even Vander. Vander in his opening has a lot of great subtle
Yeah.
points that she has in his moment in the bar. There's a lot of good moments in that scene with
Oh, yeah.
his facial expressions, like calling bluffs,
Yeah.
engaging in peace talks. It's a lot of like diplomatic facial movements that are just great for that.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, a great time to change and
yeah.
talk about Vander.
Talk about Vanda.
But just before that, I want to just say one other thing about Vibe. Well, to add on to that as well, like where she's trying to hold back, is like my favorite little detail as well is where you get the long shot where Vanda then looks at the Vi's mom's body and like deduces what's happened. And Vi like fully collapses to the floor, like she falls to her knees, and it's like, oh man, I fucked.
And the
It's so
music,
Yeah.
especially.
it's so the score for this show. I wish I knew more about music so I could gush about it. The score for this show is top tier. I listen to it all the time. It's peak. Season 2, please ruin me. Thank you. Yeah. The music for the show is peak.
There's a technical name for it, but
Leitmotif. I don't know.
when she falls to the ground and you get the shot of the medium shot of her just crying with Powder behind her hugging her, like the violin sounds like it's crying, and it's just like that feeling, it just pinpoints that emotion where it's like,
Yeah.
all right, this is the
Ray
time where
Chen,
we're breaking down.
the goat.
Yeah, he's so
Ray
great
Chen is the goat.
in this show. He's
Dude,
phenomenal.
oh my god, the Bridging the Rift documentary where he nails like the music that they play at like the opera house in episode 5. I know I'm jumping ahead. Holy shit, that man!
Yeah,
I don't know how he does it.
he's
That is
he's
insane.
great.
Anyway,
So
yeah.
Let's
Vander,
talk about Vanda.
Yes.
Who
My
wants to
favorite
talk about
character
him?
in these early episodes.
So,
He's so good.
yeah, first thing we see Vander doing is he's beating up an enforcer pretty brutally. It's the first time and it's the first time that we've seen the enforcers like actually be weak in the show. Because up to this point, what we'd assume is like, oh, this death and destruction is just undercity civilians, and the enforcers have been dominating. So in a way, it's oddly satisfying to see someone like fully beat up an enforcer. Like he throws the guy to the ground and he ground pounds him with these metal gauntlets. And it's like, oh, that guy ain't getting up. But it's also at first, it's like you don't know who this guy is because he's like really scary and hidden in the shadows. It kind of makes him look a bit inhuman, I guess you could say. I'm definitely not going somewhere with this. Anyway,
That's not gonna come up anywhere else.
oh, no, it won't. Anyway, he and initially when he looks at Vine Powder when he sees them, like he's still like in like his like he's got his game face on, like he's like like panting heavily, and he looks furious at like what's going on around him. But then he completely changes his demeanor. He approaches them slowly, and he tries to he's like figuring out what they're doing here, and then he like realizes immediately like, oh shit, I know who these people are, and
again,
I have
no
no.
dialogue.
Yeah, none of it. It's all
No
visual.
dialogue.
It can
He doesn't
express straight in
say.
the show. But
He doesn't
you
say,
just tell.
"Damn, these kids, they look lost.
Yeah,
My parents are dead. I should take them home." Doesn't say
I
any
have
of that.
become the good person.
yes. But I as well. Like, I think he already knew who the kids were because I recognized them. But like the way he sees who they are, and he he creases like his face because he already knows what the answer is. Like he knows their parents are dead, and so he just turns his head to
Gives into a sense of
tell them.
responsibility.
Because he
Takes
just
them
doesn't
in.
because he doesn't want to tell them straight up, but like you can tell immediately he feels incredible guilt.
Yeah.
And like a really great detail I love is like when they cry. The guy starts crying. Like the smoke somewhat dissipates, and the sun shines down on him for a bit, and it kind of feels like almost religious in a way. Like it's almost like a religious message of you did this. Like the spotlight's on
Yeah.
you. This is all your fault. You
Yeah.
need to like
And
repent.
of course you have like great cinematography with the
Oh, the
music when it pans up
cinematography.
from him and it shows Piltover and it becomes the Piltover theme. And it's like this city is built on blood
Yes,
just as much as it
and
is
yeah,
innovation.
and yeah, and Vander drops his gauntlets. Which he leaves behind his violent past essentially. And he carries the kids, takes them away. Um, you know, to basically attempt to raise them and make sure essentially now if he's going to try to make sure this doesn't happen again. So that's Vander for the scene, but also just before we end off, this is also where Vibe's hatred of Enforcers
Yeah.
really begins because Powder is like she's like trying to close her eyes and just and, and like sleep and like almost as if like this is a bad dream, and Vibe's like she's like she's very comfortable with Vander, like she's smiling, closing her eyes next to him on his shoulder. But then she looks back and sees the enforcers, like who were just standing there with their guns up, but like as they turn around and walk away. And it almost feels like it's them saying, "Yeah, get lost, go away, don't come
Yeah.
back." From like Vi's perspective. And then she clenches her fist and she's angry. Then she looks
Mm.
up at the council chamber, which just is above all the smoke and the death.
Mhm.
It's like, ah, man. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess to touch on a wider point, the perception of like the enforcers and just both cities changes completely like between characters because we'll see enforcers later on in this episode who like just patrol like the streets of Piltover and they look far less threatening than the enforcers that we see
Mhm.
during this prologue.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
their
Like
character
they don't
design
have
is the same, but I think it's just their expressions based on
yeah.
their body movement.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the enforcers like that chase them in the streets of Piltover. They don't have the helmets on. They don't have the body armor. They
No.
don't have
Oh, that's
guns. They
true.
just have like bolas. Essentially, they're far less threatening. Whereas the enforcers that we see, later on when they're on the streets of Zorn and like trying to, interrogate civilians for the kids' locations, it's like, oh god, it like
Yeah, it's
highlights
definitely the
like
framing.
Yeah.
They
the
take up more
different
space on
ways.
the frame. They're in slow motion.
Yeah, the
They're
different.
dimly lit.
Yeah, and it highlights just like the ways like both cities view, like Piltover view the enforcers as protectors, and the enforcers view themselves as protectors, as we'll see from Grayson in a later episode.
Actually,
But
I guess we can. Should we talk about that scene next? Like skipping ahead a bit, talking about that relationship building with Vander and the
oh,
enforcers, because
yeah, we can talk. Let's talk about Vanda, and we can talk about Grayson as well.
so
Yeah,
something I want to pinpoint because Noach brought it up. But that scene in particular, when the enforcers come, they're terrifying. Like Marcus and oh, who's the other enforcer? I'm
Grayson.
losing.
Grayson.
Yeah,
Grayson.
Grayson. I forget her name all the time. But anyway, when they
Oh
show
yeah,
up, they're very terrifying in terms of
Yes.
how the kids see them.
yeah,
We can
because like
hear every
immediately
footstep.
Clagger sees them and he runs away. Like he's like his first instinct is oh crap, and he tries to like warn Vanda. It's like oh shit, a force is coming, we gotta book it. But then Echo tells him to run. Like their first instinct isn't to fight, it's to run.
Yeah, and like you can hear every footstep, you can hear every breath they take.
Yeah,
They're
the mask.
very dominant force in the frame and
Mm.
how they
Yeah,
act. And
and
then
ta-
when they enter the room, you kind of
they
had
take
this
off.
standstill between Vander, Benzo, and Marcus and Grayson. Um, and then obviously Grayson tells Marcus to leave
Yeah,
because
get
he's
lost.
hot-headed. And then it kind of balances out, and it's kind of the reveal of the twist, right? That Vander
Yeah,
is involved.
yeah. Vander and Grayson are working together because
Yeah.
Grayson is on the same page as him. Where it's like we can't let what happened with that uprising. We can't let that
Happen
happen
again.
again.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
they are technically she's technically engaging in corruption, but it is for the greater good in a sense.
It's for a good cause.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we see a
So do we
twisted version of
want
this later.
yeah.
to?
And I also
Do we
want to
want to talk
highlight.
about? Sorry.
Well, just sorry, one last thing, Hannah. With this scene, when they enter Benzo's shop, they take off their rebreather masks when they're inside. But when Marcus leaves,
Yeah.
he puts it back on. Kind of like the enforcers, they can't. Well, we later find out that the undercity's air is a lot thicker than above ground, to the point where like
Yeah.
it can like clog your throat and like cover your eyes. So it's for like health reasons that they wear the rebreathers when they're outside, but it also we don't know that yet. So at first glance, it almost feels like they're doing it because they don't want to breathe the Undercity's air
It's like
because it's
they
just so
can't
putrid.
stand
Yeah, they
it
can't
down
take it.
here.
We're not breathing your air. We're above you. We're better
Yeah,
than
It's
it's
that.
so
another visual
wild.
We're
tie.
better than this. It's
Yeah, so
It's
do we want to
Impulse's
briefly
design,
cover
genius. Go
Milo,
ahead, Hannah.
Quagga, and then move on
Okay.
to Jace, Victor, Mel, that sort of other half of the story?
Just now while we're on it, let's just cover Grayson really quickly. And because we have the chance now. Marcus, I mean Andrew, what did you want to say? Did you have something to say about like just Grayson in general, or does anyone have anything?
Great voice actor.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
Actress,
yes.
yeah, she
I
is
mean,
great
Very
in this
good.
role.
all the performances in the show are great, but yes, she's awesome. She is swag.
Most of what I find interesting in Grayson is her relationship with Caitlin later in the
All right.
show. So I'll talk about what I think about Grayson later in the show because I
Yeah.
think she has a lot to do with other characters like Marcus and Caitlin later. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
her like the knockback of what happens with her in this show
Yeah.
cascades into different characters that I find more interesting.
Sure.
Not that she's
I
not
guess.
interesting because she's very
Oh yeah. And we do
interesting in
get
relationship with
a lot
Vander.
of. Well, obviously we get a lot of her in these first three episodes because this is the only part in the show where she's alive. But yeah, I guess I'll just say, like her generally um in these first three episodes, she's very much the kind of person who like it's clear that like Vander does not want to fuck with her, but she also
Yeah.
doesn't want to fuck with the Undercity because she knows that that's only going to lead to problems for both sides, and she doesn't
Yeah.
want that.
She's
So
like built
she's
over his
I
trying.
think
character in that way.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
trying to reason with him, but she's also like exercising like there's some stuff that isn't negotiable. Like when she's
yeah.
telling him we need like the count like oh yeah, when she's saying like this crossed a line upstairs. The council needs someone to make an example of. People need to feel safe. So she is telling him, look, we'll do things quietly, right? Just give me a name. No one will know you're involved. We'll take care of it, but you need to give us a name because otherwise, next time I come down here, I'll bring an army of enforcers with me. We both know how that
Yeah.
will go. She
I
recognizes that
think
this is a
Mhm.
problem, and
yeah.
she's more than willing to enact on it, but she doesn't want to do it.
And
I
Vander's the
think
same
the
way.
interesting thing about
Yes.
sorry. The
So yeah,
interesting
go
thing
ahead,
about
man.
Grayson is that I feel like she really understands just how much power Piltover has over the Undercity right now, and
Yeah.
that for
My
for everyone's sake, she doesn't want this to get out of hand.
Yeah. One of my favorite
And
things
you
that she does
can,
in the show is in episode 2 when she's pleading with the council to just stop the manhunt because she's like, look, we've we've conducted exhaustive interrogations, pros and cons for half the district. With all due respect, councillors, don't you think we've pushed them hard enough? Because
Mhm.
yeah, she
yeah,
recognizes that this isn't a good thing that's happening, and
this
she's
isn't going
trying
to
to
lead
ease
to good
tensions.
results.
Like she's trying to exercise what power she might have to, avoid causing any problems, but she still has to
Yeah,
enforce the law of the council.
Yep.
That's the
yeah.
problem.
That's a good
And
So,
moment with the
do we
precisely
want
council
what
too, and
to?
gets
how they
killed.
view the Undercity,
Yeah,
which we can talk
and
about
I
later.
guess
Yeah,
one last thing as well, just to highlight that she's very competent at her job. And actually, in her office, we see it very briefly. Very clear that she's on top of things with what she's doing. It's all like really the paperwork's all clearly neatly arranged. There isn't much like the piles are very short. Like she's very she's very competent at her job. She knows what she's doing.
yeah,
And this will be important when we talk about Marcus in Act Two. But essentially, to talk about Grace in for one last bit, and to bring up a broader point is character deaths in this show. Um, this show knows how to kill off characters. No character is wasted,
Oh, it's
and
so
especially
good.
not in their
It's
death.
so good.
Every time a character has died, it has been in a way that is incredibly fitting for their story or is very thematically significant. And Grayson is no different because she is literally the first character to die in this show. She gets killed before
Mhm.
Benzo. She gets killed before, well, I say killed, before Vandit. Like, she's the first one to go. And already,
Yeah,
like, when Vandit's like, no, it's already incredibly significant because she was what kept the enforcers at bay essentially, and was like trying to make
Yeah,
sure like nothing like too like they wouldn't exercise too much power over the Undercity. But she's gone now, so that
like
safety net
from
is for
her,
Vander is it's big
yeah,
hole in it now.
like from her mannerism and how she's like conveying the power that Piltover has. Like you know that once she's gone, like it's not gonna go well now. Like
And
everything's
it
is
is,
messed up now. Like she's
and
not there.
yeah, and to touch on it
These
like
people are
as
gonna do
well,
things that are gonna damage stuff.
she gets her
Yeah.
death as well is so brutal. And it's
Oh
so
my
Yeah.
gosh, it's
unexpected
awful.
because you don't see because that's like the first time that you see violence in the show that's like just so extreme, and she
Mhm.
just dies like that. She's like,
Yeah.
this character is like being represented as like being this really powerful, really capable, police officer. Essentially, she just gets killed instantly by Deckard, like, and very unceremoniously. She's just dead. That's it, done.
Yeah.
So again, just again,
Andrew,
really effective
did you have
and
something to
fitting.
say? Yeah.
Uh,
Not right now.
all
Not
right,
on
so
All
Grayson.
all
right,
right, so that's
so
great. She's great. Who else? I guess Van.
Milo,
Yeah,
Clagger.
We can
You
talk
want
yeah.
to
about
talk
Milo
about
and
those two?
Clagger now.
Okay, Milo and Clyde.
Yeah.
Andrew, you go first. You go talk about Milo. Sure.
Well, Milo, I think, is my the most interesting one to me, or the one that I know more about just from watching the show. He is annoying, and there's reason for it too. We first see him, of course. He's very antagonistic towards Powder because Powder says like, "Oh, one day I'm gonna fly in one of those," referencing the airship, and he says, "One day I'll shoot one of them down," and he always picks on Powder anytime he gets, and uh, a good moment to um, uh, formulate why he does this is when they're first breaking into Jace's apartment, and he says, "Since I'm the only one here that knows how to pick locks," and he starts picking the lock, and then they just bash the door in, which pretty much highlights the fact that if his only skill is pretty much irrelevant since they can break down any door they have, and without Powder there, he would be the most useless one there, and him picking on Powder is mostly just uh,
Projection.
projection and in just being insecure with his own power set. And I think he's actually the one that takes the most damage during their fight in the alleyway.
Yes, he gets his
Um,
arse handed to him.
yeah. Um, and
I
yeah,
mean,
he's
Vi
just
needs to
very
save him,
interesting,
kinda.
and he does have a payoff with his skill later, releasing
Yeah.
Vander.
We'll talk about that when we talk about their deaths, which will be very soon. Because I think you pretty much nailed it. I'll say as well with Milo,
Um,
it's also he plays a very significant role in like you know, Jinx's creation, but just it's clear that if a lot of what he says about Powder is also just part of just like he's a kid, he's an immature, stupid teenager who doesn't understand that
mm,
what he's saying has like a severe impact on Powder's well-being. And like if he were older, he wouldn't do that. But he's a kid and he's annoyed. He's frustrated with the situation around him because he hates Piltover like everyone else. And we get some neat insight into his perspective on Piltover when they break into Joseph's penthouse. When
yeah,
Clyde like is like in awe, like, well, how can someone have so much stuff? And he's like, simple, just get born lucky, which tells us a
Mhm.
lot, not only just about like his perspective, but also just maybe the Undercities as a whole, like how they think
yeah,
Piltover. They're only as powerful as they are because they just got it. When they were born, they got it. They
Yep.
didn't earn it, they just had it. And it makes it even worse. The Undercity had nothing and Piltover refused to give any of it. So he's very insecure about himself essentially, and he scapegoats his own he scapegoats these onto Powder. So
Mhm.
yeah.
that's essentially Milo's like whole deal. You know, Clagger, which I also he Clagger, he's not as like obvious as Milo in terms of like what like his main characteristic is, but just like with me, what I think he's supposed to represent is what Vander wants to see in Vi as a leader. Um, like So essentially, with in Vanda in Act One tries to drill into Vi that if she's going to be the leader, she can't be selfish, and violence isn't going to solve her problems, right? And that's the arc that she goes on in this season, but in this first act. Um, but with Clagger, through every time the first thing that like he does when to show like he looks out for the little guy, and he is he's the gentle giant of the group, right? And Hannah, you
Yeah,
just in general like what you had to say about Clagger, I think like
he's just great. I love him. There's
yeah
just something about him. He'd just be such a good friend because
yeah
he just looks out for you.
very lovely gentle giant. Yeah, he looks out for the little guy, and the first example of him doing this is when Powder's too scared to jump the ledge between buildings, and he tells Vi, "Look, I'll get her." Like he opts to do that, which would take a considerable amount of effort, but like yeah, he's looking out for Powder. He wants to help her out.
Yeah,
And we see when Milo is like chastising Powder, like every time it happens, like Kiger is like trying to he's trying to ignore it because he's very clearly uncomfortable by it. He
yeah,
doesn't like seeing them argue all the time. Um, and tries to stay out of it. And even in the hideout in episode 2, he tries to throw a jab at Milo. And is it like when he's like, he's annoyed that Powder is better at sharpshooting than he is. He's like, "Oh, what's the matter, Milo? Afraid Powder's gonna beat you again?" Because he doesn't like
yeah,
the way that Milo treats Powder, and so he's teasing him for it. So yeah, he's looking out for her. Um, although
yeah,
Powder might not interpret it that way. I'll talk about that at some point. I don't know if it'll be this episode or next episode, but yeah. Um,
yeah,
with essentially this also just in general he's just very selfless, and he also tries to avoid conflict, like the street fight in episode 1 when you know they first encounter Deckard, and stuff starts to get heated. He like intervenes and like tries to say, "Look, we don't want any trouble, okay?" Like he's actively
mhm,
trying to dissolve the conflict and make sure that a fight doesn't break out. It doesn't work because he
yeah,
doesn't have that leadership status that Vi does, but he's trying. He's doing the responsible thing. He's doing what Vander would want him to do. Um, and then I would say this whole thing where he is like the selfless leader who looks out for everyone really all comes to a head in episode 3 when he goes with the others to rescue Vander from Silco, and his job is literally just to find a way out for the kids. Like his entire
yeah,
focus is creating an escape route for them, and you just get everything's like really tense, and just slowly maturely he's just bashing away at the wall with his pipe until he's like
yeah.
able
Like
to
he,
like just knock out brick by
like
brick.
eventually, he started to be he's like quite measured and he's thoughtful about it, and then he just goes for it,
He's just
which is
bashing.
like really,
He's like no.
he's just
He's
like,
desperate. He's like
I
no.
have
We
to
have
do
to get.
this.
Yeah, no. He literally
Yeah,
says, I'm gonna get you out." That is his
it's
thing,
so
and
good.
he's determined, and he smashes through it, and he does it, and it's great. It's like he found the way out for them, and he created a hole big enough for them to all slip
Yeah,
out of it. It's like wonderful. That's great. That's a really neat thing you did there, Clive. You're looking out for everyone, essentially saving everyone. Yay, neat. Um, unfortunately, this is when he bites the
unfortunately,
dust, and I guess I'm going to talk about how he dies because I think it's really sad. He
should we
dies
talk
instantly.
about the death and the well? I mean, should we talk more about Philco and
I
like
want to
the
just,
other part of this, or
I just quickly wanted. I think let's just wrap up
yeah,
Milo and Clegg for now, and then we'll go back to the other characters. We'll just end off Milo and Clegg. So, Clegg gets killed instantly by the explosion. Yeah, he dies instantly. He gets hit in the head by shrapnel, goes up against the wall, he's dead, and it killed off very unceremoniously. After, I agree, TK. After after putting all this effort to save everyone, and doing the right thing, doing what Vander would believe a leader should do to look out for others by literally creating their escape route, he dies instantly. Very unceremoniously. No one
yeah,
really realizes, apart from Milo, who I guess, well, in the first episode, Vi chastises him because basically another like just his insecurities in general is like she confronts him basically for his behavior and the fact that he's basically always only like bragging, complaining about things, picking fights with the group when they need to focus. And throughout like the first few episodes, Milo does throw a few jabs at Clagger. Like when he's like, Clagger, for once you're right. We're definitely not supposed to be here when they enter Jace's penthouse. And kind of like sets up like Milo tries to give off like this tough exterior, where like,
mm,
I'm tough shit, yeah. But when he gets impaled by the pipe and he lands next to Clagger and he tries to rip it out, he
yeah,
glances over and he sees Clagger dead and he's like, oh shit, and he's
Yeah.
like, he's
Yeah,
like, whoa, no, like he's like no, he's horrified by it, and and we might have got more of a reaction out of him, but unfortunately he then gets killed because the ceiling falls on him.
yeah,
But it's a really great reveal. It's like, oh man, it's like
Yeah.
the mask slips. Like that's the
In
real Milo that we
in
see.
terms of directing, this is like also a great way to
Oh,
show
the
the audience
editing,
like
Oh, I think the explosion in episode 3 is the best sequence in season 1. Just
yeah.
the editing, everything, it's fantastic. I did when I was in sixth form. We had to do a video essay on just editing in general, and I talked about this scene. I talked about this
Mhm.
sequence because I just thought it
oh
was
my
so
gosh.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
we
great
it
sequence, and I have it
shows
on my
us
hard
it
drive.
like 3 times in a
Yeah,
row, and it's just like it's emphasizing the thing like everything just went wrong, nothing is
yeah.
okay
What,
anymore.
what, what, no,
Goodbye.
what I love about it is the only very quickly, another thing I want to say about Milo that I noticed on one of my my last thing about him, I noticed on like one of my most recent watches is when Vi opts to leave Powder behind at the last drop, and it's like this kind of awkward thing where Powder's clearly like really upset to be left behind, and like they know it, like Milo and Clegg and like they know they're gonna go into like very dangerous like mission, like trying to save Vander. And you see Milo looking back at Powder, who's like been left behind and intentionally told that she's not ready, and like he kind of looks like he feels bad for her, like he's like, oh,
Yeah,
he's like almost sorry that she had to go through that. But again, it's not obvious, and like that's not going to make up for all the shit he said about Powder. But it's like again, it's another case of
no.
like the mask slipping. That like this chatty, cocky exterior that he has is
I
just the
think
front,
it
like the mild-mannered
I
kid that
think
he
it
actually
reminds
is.
us that he is just a kid, and
Yes,
like due to how tragic it is that he dies, it's not
yeah,
fun.
both
Yeah,
me and
so
I could die very
do we want
unceremonious.
to talk about Powder
Powder,
next and then move on
Yep.
to
Powder, then Vi, then Bandit, then Booker.
I guess I'll start with Powder / Jinx since she's like my favorite character in the whole show. So Powder at the start,
yeah,
she's like she really wants to help the others, but because due to her age and her lack of experience, she's not like able to help extremely well. She's often like chastised for this by Milo. Um, she's like it's like her main conflict throughout these like first 3 episodes, and then like finally once Vander is captured, like okay, so first I should explain this. She's been struggling to get her bomb working correctly throughout the whole thing, and then once she gets the what's the blue substance called again? Fuck, I can't remember anything from this show as well.
Well,
It's a hex core,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's an
Hex Tech,
unstable
yes.
hex
Hex,
gem.
yeah.
yeah,
Is what
Hex
it
Yeah,
is.
Gem.
they call them the gemstones in Act 2, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
They're the more stabilized, but they're just crystals, I believe. These are just called hex tech,
yeah.
like crystals.
So she essentially
And
like
let's just say
grabs one
like
of them during like the initial
Mhm.
heist. She like hangs onto it. Then like she finally thinks to like use that as a source of fuel. Would it be for the bomb? I don't know how these things
An
work.
yeah,
explosive,
I think
just
she
an
puts
I'm
explosive.
like
apologies.
a
I'm
whole
very
bunch of
tired today.
them into the bomb.
But like yeah, once she does that, she like tries to help so the bomb like never works up until the point where they're trying to rescue Vander. Or
Yeah,
unfortunately, due to
I
like the
appreciate.
way due to the way
Oh, sorry, just go.
yeah, like unfortunately it because like the thing is so powerful, like it ends up like killing most of them and like doing like the opposite of what she intended it to do.
Yeah,
And because like she's
I
already
mean,
like mentally unstable from the start, like she finally like snaps after like Vi chastises her for it out of frustration. I really like
And
the
the
expressions
direction for
throughout
that
all of
scene
it. You
is
could just like you can
fantastic, by the
straight
way.
up see the pain in her face. It's amazing.
Yeah,
hmm,
and I will
I
say as
think
well, I love that this
Wait,
hallucination
hang
that
on.
we see.
Can I address a
We don't.
certain squirrel on the room first?
Uh,
Squirrel.
well,
Yeah.
give me.
Ah,
I
man,
just want
I hate that guy.
you can do that in a second. I know what you're gonna
Yeah.
say. Um, but like the direction that's in, I love the first. That's like the first big hallucination that we see Powder have in the show, and we
yeah,
don't see or hear anything. It's only her. we
Yeah,
only
there's,
see like what's happening
There's
in
a slight
reality.
violin creating tension in the
Well,
background.
no, it's a so you know when she's in the penthouse and like she's searching around for the crystal and she finds it, it's a discordant version of that theme.
Mm.
It is that
Oh
theme,
my
that
gosh.
Jinx's theme, the discordant violin. That is that theme, just now distorted.
Yeah.
It's
I have a
great.
couple
The
things
music in the show
to
is
say
beautiful
about.
again.
First of all, let's just establish that the hex bombs, like the blue crystals, are very powerful. Like,
Mhm.
just one of those basically blows up Jace's entire apartment. Like bits of the balcony are blown out. Like, there's a massive hole in the floor. Like, this is very powerful. And Powder puts like 5 or 6 of them into one bomb. So, yeah.
Yeah, she puts all the gushers.
Doesn't it?
You
Doesn't it
literally
take Savika's arm off?
Yeah.
I think that's
so
what.
okay.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, because
okay,
like she's trying to like
well,
shield Silco from the blast, and then
yeah,
like she
so
loses
we
her
can
arm
talk.
because of it.
Yeah. Well, okay, I want to say it doesn't completely. It looks like it vaporizes it. It doesn't. It just burns it really badly because you see it at the end of the episode.
I think the
Um,
vaporizing is like more just like a stylistic touch to make it like
Yeah,
look cooler,
it is.
which I think it
It
works
Yeah.
really well, as most of the
Um,
visuals that the show
Wait, you
does.
see the arm?
And
Oh.
also,
So
like,
when
sorry.
at the very end of the episode where like Silco finds Powder for the first time and like all the goons are around her, the big tattooed guy is carrying Savika, and yeah, her arm is there and it's all like burned and charred and shit,
Yeah.
but it's
Oh,
still
okay.
attached to her body.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I will also
But-
say I think my favorite scene from the entire show is Powder's breakdown after Vi like leaves her. It's just it's so brutal. It's so accurate. So like
Yeah,
how
like,
you can imagine someone like
And it's-
breaking down like that.
Yeah.
Her also like adopting
just
the name like
miserable.
Milo would always give her as well after like she fucks up so tremendously while trying to help is just so heartbreaking to me. Like
Mhm.
Jesus, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do we want to talk about Silco?
Wait. There's another thing I wanted to
Wait,
go over.
No. Let's talk about.
Oh, no.
Let's finish Powder up and talk about
Yeah.
that squirrel. Go on.
Yeah.
TK.
Oh yes, so a certain idiotic squirrel decided to criticize this whole Powder's whole character by saying that she was being unreasonable to Vi by like
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things,
by
but yeah, this
by
is one
turning
thing.
against by becoming evil because of it. And he's saying that like
Yeah,
Vi was
how
the
did
reason Vi was like right to do that.
Why did Powder join Silco? Is she stupid?
Yeah,
That's
so
the
like
first thing
I want to
say.
address. I get he doesn't
Does she
stand by
know?
this, but it's such a bafflingly bad argument that I want to go over it anyways.
And it's not the only one.
Oh yeah, all of that. The fucking audacity of him to say that like
Oh,
that
TK, I
that like
I
his
ripped him apart.
hallucinations,
I-
her hallucinations are like some Suicide Squad bullshit. I hated that.
Yeah, don't worry.
God,
I
fuck
rip him
off,
apart
Shandy.
in the dark. I rip him apart. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh man. So like, firstly, like, Jinx is like some young child at this point. I don't think she's about to like think rationally after firstly trying to help and then like having
Actually, yeah,
having her
like, I'm
friends
sorry.
die because of her own actions.
Like, I want to ask you,
And then
right,
like
how
she's yelled at
anyone-
for it, like for
I wanna
like
see how, like,
by her
yeah,
own sister
like-
and then rejected.
so bad.
So
But
yeah, like
the
of
response
course she's
is,
gonna like react this way.
Why? Yeah,
And,
why
like,
are you
She's like mentally unstable from the start as well. And this is like just what makes her snap.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate response is, all right, how would you react if you found out you killed your entire family?
Mhm.
How would you react? Tell me.
Yeah.
Especially
Not
given the
so-
context
not
of
so good.
who Powder is. Like, she is already broken. Like,
Yeah, you know what?
she's been broken, and the person she looks up to the most, being Vi, not only told her that everything is her fault, but also like completely abandoned her from her point of view.
Right? Yeah,
Left.
yeah.
And
I'm gonna get actually.
at that she was begging for her to come back, and she never did.
Yes. I'm now gonna get that. I'm gonna get that that thing, and I'm gonna like read out what I wrote in response to like this particular this particular point. So just give me a second. Okay.
As you do that, I want to talk about Vi's character during the last.
You-
Yeah,
episode.
go for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
So Vi in particular, I think this entire arc she's been building up. She's been built up by her conversations with Vander as the leader of the group and what she needs to do as a leader. Vander tells her like, if you want to fight, they'll fight. If you want to burn a bridge down, they'll show up with oil, right?
If they swim, they dive in.
But if whatever happens, it's on you. And just that line in particular, you can tell she's thinking about that during when she's pinned to the ground by a door that she can't pick up. She just like she's looking at both Clagger and Milo's like dead limbs under the rubble, and she's just bawling. And then she sees the monkey bomb, and she in that moment she's thinking, "Oh my god, Powder came here, and now she's dead, and all of it's because of her." And
yeah. Because and it isn't even necessarily entirely her fault because she initially opted to come here alone, but Milo and Clagger wanted to go along with it. They convinced her to bring them along.
And it's that leader aspect of it, right? Like they'll show up regardless.
She's almost like the parentified child. That's what everyone says, and yeah, she is because she feels like she has to take that responsibility. She has to shoulder it because she's
another thing about the animation is when the characters cry, it is ugly. Like there's no happy like no one cries and it looks beautiful, right? Like it looks beautiful in terms of the animation and the technique, but as the characters, they look like someone who just lost their entire family.
Yeah, like it's like really realistic and believable. Like it's incredible how well done the animation is.
And we have like after everything happened and Vander gets Shimmer and fights everything off, and he grabs, instead of like indulging in the monster that he's
killing
become,
Silco,
he decides to protect the last person that he knows is still alive.
And that actually is when the conflict ends.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a point about that in a bit, but yeah, go ahead.
And then his dying breath being protect Powder, and she just yells out of frustration, and then Powder comes around.
Another great, when she gets up, she like takes a deep breath as if like she's trying to calm herself down, and then that's when Powder arrives and she's like, "Vi, it worked!" I'm like, "Oh no!"
Again, such great blocking techniques and how they reveal characters being in the shot. She gets up, the focus changes down to Powder as she goes around, and it just the fury, the just unfiltered rage that Vi feels.
I told you to stay away.
Yeah, and she just loses it on Powder. Like, I told you to stay away. And like, why did you leave me? Because you're a jinx. Milo was right. And she just breaks down. And my favorite moment in this arc specifically is the moment that pretty much it changes how Vi views everything about herself, because she, in that moment when she's so angry and furious, she leaves because she looks at the blood on her hand and she realizes that she's messing up. So she leaves. She gets herself out of that situation, and that's the right thing to do because she needs to calm down. But from everything that happens later with Silco showing up and then Marcus, drugging her and dragging her off to Stillwater, she no longer sees that as the right thing she did. She now, sees that as, the real monster showed up and I just ran away. And it's just, it's such a great...
It's so miserable.
It's a great writing. From a writing standpoint, it's great to show, instead of just expositing what happened, it's a great way to show how characters view themselves in different situations. It's just it's perfect.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on the fact that in a bit where Vi is now going to go into an environment where violence is pretty much a necessity to survive from her POV. But this completely changes her worldview, and it's really interesting because like in Act One, she does go through a complete arc essentially because she's saying, yeah, let's fight the enforcers, yeah, let's do this, right? And if you, Vander, if you're not going to fight, I will. But then Vander reminds her like how this all started, and then she
Yep.
realizes when she looks at like the memorials and when she's on the bridge, like she hears like the sounds of like that day with all the gunfire and the people dying. It's like she's remembering like all the kids who like got orphaned and the fact that like if this happens again, that if they're going to do another rebellion, it's just going to happen again. There are going to be more orphan children just like her, and that's like her cue to realize, okay, no, I can't. We can't do that. And then that's when she chooses to give herself up. She opts to
Yeah.
not choose the violent option. She chooses peace. She gives herself up. She makes the sacrifice play. She
Mm.
does the mature thing, what the leader should do. It's on her,
Yeah.
and it's how it protects the
Yeah.
others, but that does not pan out, unfortunately.
Can I
And I
can I
think
say
just
that like sorry,
yeah, go on.
like when Vi screams and then she gets up, I was just dreading Powder coming around the corner, and then when she does and she's so cheerful, like your heart just sinks because you know something bad's about to happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And
just want to
It's
touch
pretty
on.
also,
miserable.
Go on, go on.
oh, you go, Hannah, if you had something
I
else.
Oh no, it's fine.
Oh, all I was gonna say in the music at the end leading into
oh,
goodbye is just
oh the
peak.
music. Oh, the
No.
songs in Act One. Just a side note, the songs in Act One, they're all great. I love them all,
Mm.
and I love all
Anyway,
the
do you
songs
have
in the
that
soundtrack.
that little blurb
Oh,
you wrote?
so yeah, but essentially, this was a point I was going to make about Powder and like why this moment when Vi strikes her down is so significant, and it also leads into why she has her breakdown episode 3 is essentially because, and I'm going to talk about Vi in a bit. The way that she very much feels like the parentified child, she acts as almost like a motherly figure to Powder. She's like trying to like give her pep talks, like make her feel included because she knows that Powder isn't very secure about herself and like thinks that she's not very good at what she does. She's very vulnerable, and she's consistently bringing Powder along to these missions so that she feels useful, even though she deep down Vi recognizes that Powder isn't cut out for this. And I hinted at this in the first recording we did of this before it was revealed to us it wasn't recorded properly. Um, when she tells Milo, like she's frequently in like the first few episodes, she is telling Milo to like drop it whenever he tries to pick a fight with Powder. And when they're on the lift, going down to the Undercity, and playground's about to start playing, um, she so just drop it, Milo, and then she looks away and like has to take a deep breath, but like look like her expression, you can tell it's like she knows that like deep down, yeah, she is disappointed. Powder did mess up. Um, yeah, and it's all like, and then of course becomes very clear. The episode where he's like, because you're a jinx, Milo was right. Deep down, Vi knows that Powder is like only like she is a problem, but she doesn't want to tell her because she cares for Powder so much that she doesn't want to say anything that's going to hurt her. But that only makes it worse because when that truth does come out, everything that Vi had been saying to prop up Powder up to that point in Powder's mind is now lip service because it was all lies.
Yeah.
Like when Vi told her when she was jumping across the bridge, like across the ledge to the building on the heist, it's like, what did I tell you? You're ready. Well, no, you're not ready because
No,
that's what
no,
Vi
he's
tells Powder
not.
when they're off to go save Vander. It's like you're not ready, and like Powder is like horrified because it's like holy shit. That's like that's no, I can't. Like that's the complete opposite of what Vi told her literally the previous day,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
it's like, and then when Vi strikes her down and then calls her a jinx, it's like, oh my god! In Powder's mind, everything that Vi has said to
That's
her is a complete
everything.
lie. Everything is
It's all good.
completely
Yeah.
recontextualized in her head. It's like Vi lied to her entire life, as far as she's aware. Because again, she's not mentally stable. She's not thinking rationally. She's terrified. And in from her point of view, it's like, yeah, Vi just basically abandoned her, and she can't trust anything Vi says, including the flare. Like, yeah, Vi told her like light it up wherever you are and I'll find you. I promise. It's like invite like from Bella's perspective, she can't trust that anymore, and it's why she doesn't use it until
Yeah.
like later on when there's a chance that Vi has come back. but she doesn't do it instinctively because she doesn't trust anything Vi says anymore. And it's why she then goes to Silco, because he's literally the first person to find her after she's been abandoned, because it's clear like she's been dealing with like these, like the source of her insecurities is like being when she was orphaned. She was like she's had these really bad abandonment issues since, and she wants to basically prove herself and make herself feel worthwhile, so that no one's ever gonna like leave her behind. But now
Yeah.
that she has been left behind, she has nothing, and so she goes for the one person who like
I mean,
speaks to
like,
her,
she jumps
and
on
that's
him.
Silco.
Like, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even.
she jumps at him and hugs him, and she has no idea who this guy is.
No idea. Never met him before.
Yeah, and he's literally been planning to kill her like these past these past 2 episodes. And he's
Mhm.
even like Silco is shocked himself. I love that. Um,
It's
and
great.
then like she's like saying she left me. She's not my sister anymore. And it's like, damn.
And he connects with that.
We'll show them.
But yeah, it's Silco. We can talk about him in a second. But yeah, I that was essentially it, the pushback on the whole like, oh,
Yeah.
why does Powder think Vi abandoned her? Well, she can't trust anything that Vi has said.
I don't think we
Oh,
can trust anything Shandy says either, for
Oh,
reasons
you
I
name
won't get
dropping.
into here.
All right.
Let's
Yeah,
So,
okay.
let's do
But I
Jace
want to
next, I
one last
guess.
wait. One last thing about one last
All
thing
right, sure.
about Vi. I just want to touch on like her tough exterior, essentially. A key thing that I love about Vi in this show, is it's very clear that the Vi we see in these episodes where she's like really angry, she tries to get into fights a lot, and she's like very physically capable, that she's learned from her time in the Undercity. It's all like just the root of like this anger and this hatred that she's been bottling up against Piltover since she was a kid. And like when she kicks in the door and stops Milo from not picking it, she only does it because, well, she wants to. Like she's like, oh, you're gonna unlock that door anytime soon. It's like, yeah, Milo probably could have done it, but no, she wanted to kick it in because fuck Piltover, fuck them, fuck that door,
Mhm.
mm,
And she's just ransacking everything, she's just taking everything. And that's like the whole reason she went for the heist anyway, is it's like she tries to tell the kids, that the other guys, it's like, oh yeah, what, this is exactly the sort of thing Vander would have done. And do you think people in Topside are going hungry? And it's like she's trying to act like, oh yeah, this is a benevolent act for the Undercity that we're pulling off right now, when deep down you know that this is just her way of getting back at Piltover and just taking something from them after they've taken
Yeah.
so much
mm.
from her.
She's just angry.
And it also leads into another thing, and this is a very broad point that I'll make later on, but Vi and Silco are very eerily similar to each other in a lot of
Yeah.
ways that you wouldn't really expect.
Yeah.
And her manipulation techniques is one of them, because she does manipulate. She does manipulate Clagger while coming in, because like he's very frequently on the heist. He's like expressing doubts about like should we be here? Like Vander would not want this, and she's like, no, what? No, Vander was doing this thing when he was our age, so yeah, no, this is fine. And she's lying to them. It's complete bullshit. But she is going to do it because, again, at this point in time, she's selfish. She's not being a good leader.
Mm.
Hmm.
And it's not the only
And
time she lies, as I say. Her little white lies for Powder, telling her that she's ready when she deep down doesn't actually think that. And just yeah, it is all just basically her tough persona. It's all a facade, and the real Vi that we do see on occasion is the real Vi really comes out when she's talking with Vander, I think, and like when she's with Powder at the end of episode 1. Yeah, the very caring, compassionate, young girl that we see. That is who Vi actually is, and not this angry, just
mm.
violent lunatic that we see in these first few episodes. And it's just,
So,
yeah, it's
speaking
great. Vi's a
of
great character. And we'll talk more about her
plundering
later
and
on.
pilfering, should we talk about the person who get plundered and pilfered from? Can we
Yeah.
talk about Jace?
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, so who wants to start?
We'll come
I
back around to the
guess
Chrome
I
Lander
could
in a bit.
start.
Yeah, go.
So like when
Yeah,
we
you go
first
ahead.
meet, when we first meet Jace, he's like basically being like robbed by Vi and the others. He's trying to like bring about a new age to wait. Fuck. What's the setting called again? Fuck. I keep forgetting things from the
Piltover?
show. Yeah, Piltover.
Piltover.
Ugh. Why do I keep forgetting things from this?
You just watched it yesterday.
Yeah, I watched it like the other day. I don't know why. So yeah, like he's trying to like bring about like a new special technology called Hex Tech to Piltover. He gets like plundered and robbed by like Vi and the others, and because of that, like the building is like exploded. He gets caught by like the council and then like expelled. That's not going to really stop him though, because he teams up with Victor and then like sneaks into the
Which I will
what's it called
say, he
again?
actually when
Into the
Victor opts to
academy
do
to
it,
like finish his
I
experiment,
was
and
supposed
then
to
Mel
I was
helps him out because
supposed
she sees potential in it.
yeah.
And
Can I
then
just
based
say as
on
well?
him being
Oh,
able to stabilize it, he
Podcast is
brings
just people
about
talking over each other.
said new age. Yeah. Fuck, I'm
yeah.
tired today.
Essentially, I also want to just say, Jace actually does opt to like not do it when Victor offers to help him because he's like he doesn't want it. Like he doesn't want Victor to like risk losing his position as Heimerdinger as assistant, which I really like because it's like Jace does care about other people around him. Like he's not just completely selfish. Like he's willing to take the risk when it's just him, but when he sees that Victor is willing to also take the risk, he's like, no, 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 no. No, if we're wrong, we're getting banished. You don't have to do this. It's just me.
Yeah.
Like,
If you're wrong, we're cooked.
yeah, better be right then.
When you're going to change the world, do not ask for
don't
permission.
ask for permission. I'm sure that line won't have any horrifying
Oh
recontextualization
dear.
in season 2. I'm sure that'll be perfectly innocuous and cool. Yeah, neat.
Yeah.
I guess to just talk about Jace. If I would like talk about his main characteristic, it's his ego. He's a very egotistical character in the show, and it comes out like immediately. Like when well, the most explicit example would be when Victor stops him from committing suicide in episode 2, and he's like he's saying like, oh, what's that? It's another list with my name on it. Like, actually, yes, but only because you sign your notes every page. I might add a little egotistical, don't you think? Like it's just like, oh, that's neat. But as well, just even like small things, like in the first scene when Grayson is like interrogating him almost, and he's like answering questions. He's being like very lax about it, and he's almost like trying to enact some form of dominance. Like he's not being like humble in any way. He's just trying. He's trying to enact as much power as he can over them. Like when Victor starts like talking about him, like who authorized your research, and he's like, independent study. Who are you anyway? Right? Like trying to like almost like denigrate his position. And like when an enforcer like nearly like is like messing around with some like hex tech stuff, and it like looks like causes a spark. He's like, look, be careful with that, please. Like again, like he's getting annoyed at them rather than just saying, oh no no no, be careful with that. Like no, he's trying to demonstrate some form of power over them, which he doesn't have. And he's very in episode 4 it becomes more clear, but like it's his whole thing about pushing forward that hex tech. A lot of it comes from his desire to prove himself because he explains that no one in my life expected very much of me, and he's very he's also very insecure about like his place in society because House Talus aren't that impressive, as we find out when
They're
we
not
get
that.
introduced to Mel. When we get introduced to Mel, it's like, oh, they're known for the collapsible pocket wrench. Like that's it. That's all they're known for. And it's like Jace is very clearly trying to prove himself by introducing this new era of science where magic is an inherent part of it, and magic in a world where magic is very frowned upon because the people who do use it are very dangerous and only use it for nefarious purposes. But Jace wants to issue in something new because he wants to be significant. And he also believes that it can better the world, which he does want to do. But part of that is his desire to prove himself and as a great contributor to society.
Which I mean,
And
he does.
yeah. And I guess I want to talk about the trial soon as well, because this can also be where we can talk about Mel.
Should we talk about
a great little moment when he's walking to so I'm gonna say this. When he's walking to the the council table when they're about to pull off the trial, he's like and like all the people in the crowds are like whispering about him, murmuring about him. He like is looking around and he's clearly like, annoyed. He's not happy with it. Like, he's insecure talking to me, and I don't know what they're saying. I don't like this. Like he's very uncomfortable in that situation, which again demonstrates he cares greatly about the way other people perceive him. But yes, let's talk about Mel. Mel, go ahead, Hannah. I'm sure I think you've got a lot to say about this one.
Part there isn't a whole lot to say just yet. I could be wrong, but we're introduced to Mel, and it's clear she's very important. I mean, just from her like design, she's very well dressed. She's very confident, and
Established
I
a
mean
religious
when
person in Piltover, yet still the poorest
Yes.
Medarda.
Mm-hmm.
when Heimerdinger and some other people break into the room where Victor and Jace are doing their funky little experiment, like she very much overrules them, and she's just like, "Yeah, this looks cool. Let's use this. This looks like we can do something." Built over. So she's
Perhaps it's
very,
time
She's very
for the era
ambitious.
of magic. She is
perhaps it's
ambitious.
time.
Uh,
She is very
it's almost,
ambitious.
it's almost like this
Very
theme of characters
manipulative,
wanting. Yeah, it's there's this
like her
theme of
mother.
characters being very insecure about themselves and wanting to prove themselves in society. I wonder if there'll be even more
I'm
characters
sure.
who are like
Recurring
this.
theme there. Wonder if it'll
I'm
get
sure
picked up
this
on.
this doesn't link to her in any way later on in the show. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to say right now. I mean, there is,
Well,
but
yeah, I guess I just want to say that she's incredibly intelligent. That's what we learn about
she
her
is.
Mhm.
mainly.
Yes.
And
Very
when you
manipulative.
rewatch the show, you realize that they even set up, her insecurities about her being an exile from her family. But again, as Nochi pointed out, when she's introduced, it's like, okay, I remain the poorest Madada. It's like she
Hmm.
really hates that she's a cop. She's a cop. She's an outcast essentially, and she
Yeah.
wants to prove herself by being basically transforming Piltover into a truly powerful society that can rival the Madada
Yeah.
family. Um,
Yeah.
but the
She's
main
just
thing we learn is
really
she's
cool.
very intelligent, and I think
She's
the
she
trial
is.
scene emblem. I think the trial scene demonstrates that incredibly well. And so in the first scene, she's immediately trying to she's basically getting a present for another counselor who she intends to just essentially curry favor with. So for the
Mhm.
upcoming trial, and she's trying to get information, and we find out that she's already had her servant Elora like do her research, where she's like. So, but Heimerdinger, like, she's gotten her already to like check and see if Heimerdinger favors Jace. So, or because it's seven
Hmm.
counselors, she knows that uh, Cassandra is going to support Jace because she's his patron. Heimerdinger favors him because he's a scientist. That's good. And depending on whether or not she's interested in what his crime was, she's also going to want to keep him around and support him. So she's now getting a a child's toy for Hoskell, the really dumb fat counselor, so that
Mhm.
she can curry favor with him, and that way the majority of the council will now support Jace. But that, of course, that depends on whether or not she chooses to, because she can obviously just choose not to, and she's still an advantage. But she's playing the system, and she's very good at it. Compared to
Yep.
Yes.
Sallow, who's played
Mhm.
by Josh Keaton, which I think is really neat, where he tries to like give Costco ginkgo nuts. He's like, "Oh, don't you know I'm allergic?" It's like, okay, so Mel knows what she's doing already, but when she's also shows great interest when Elora reveals that he's from House Talus. It's like, oh, a house. Okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna look out for this kid. And when Jace walks
Hmm.
in, she is the only counselor who, aside from Heimerdinger, who's actually like looking at him, and she's very clearly like
Yeah.
analyzing his behavior. And she clocks that Jace is like feeling uncomfortable by all the whispering around him. She clocks that because we cut from him reacting to it to her reacting, and she's grinning. It's like so
Hmm.
that is her realizing that that's his pressure point, and that's exactly what she does in the trial because she tries to hit him with when they're talking. She asks, "Do you have anything to show for your work besides an explosion?" No, it came to nothing. So you're saying your study was meaningless? And then
Mhm.
Jace is really set off by that, and he says, "It was
Yeah.
revolutionary. Revolutionary how? All I see is a boy meddling with things he doesn't understand." And then the rest of the council like start just saying, the academy seems to have loosened its standards, and then they're going on about like, oh, what, like this is pointless. Let's just get on with this. And they show like almost a Soviet montage of just a bunch of shots, like the councillors talking essentially.
Yeah.
And it's all like really quick, fast paced, so you miss a lot of details. But
It's like
when you slow it down,
overwhelming.
yeah. But in between all the shots that the councillors being like annoyed and shit, you get a shot of Mel, and she's looking at Jace still, and she's like analyzing his behavior because like he's like twitching. And she
Hmm.
then says to end it off, she's like, perhaps we should just finish this. And then that is what prompts Jace to reveal, I was trying to create magic. And that's exactly
Yeah.
what she was after, because her entire goal was
Mhm.
to figure out what Jace was on trial for
Up
and what
to.
his research was going to be. And she got it
Mhm.
because she saw his weakness and she exploited it and got the council to do it for her so that it wouldn't be so obvious. And she's so
Yeah.
fucking clever. I love this character so much.
She's so good.
Very
So-
fashionable,
that
best
is my
dressed and all
gushing of-
Piltover for sure.
Yeah, that is my gushing
Yeah,
of
Speaking-
them all.
gold embossed tattoos, bro. Crazy.
She's
Absolute
so cool.
goddess. She cannot possibly be real. I wish she was real. Insane.
Speaking of
What?
intelligent characters, should we talk
Victor?
about Victor?
Yeah.
And then
Victor.
we will end with Silco, probably.
Of course, yes.
Well, no, we got to put Vander as well. We'll do Silco and Vander after Victor, I think. Then.
Yeah, we can
Oh,
do them together.
Oh, we've got Heimerdinger. It's fine. All right, yeah, let's just do
We
it.
can talk
All right,
about
Victor.
It's
Heimerdinger
fine.
in following.
With Victor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk about Victor? Who's Victor?
Who wants to talk about him? I mean, can we just
I
say
guess
he's
I'll talk about Victor.
he's very good looking. Like, let's be
Yeah.
honest here.
Victor
He's
He's so
is
cool.
when we're first introduced to him, we're not meant to think very much of him because he's just Heimerdinger's assistant.
And we don't know what his name is.
Yeah, and we see him in specifically when when Grayson is investigating the room. He's in the room and he's asking questions, which kind of leads us to think, okay, you're an interesting character, but we don't know if we're going to do anything with you yet. And then as episode 2 goes on, we see the trial, and we see that Victor is being somewhat inspired by Jace's motivation for his technology.
The only one.
Yeah, the only one really, because like everyone else is pretty much abandoning him. Like even his mother is like, oh, he's not in
Well,
his
yeah,
in his own
she
mind.
lies. She lies. Yeah, my son isn't in his right mind, so that like the council will hopefully like show sympathy for him and not
Mhm.
banish him. But it's like, oh, that's not great.
And then
You're just telling him your son's insane.
yeah, and then we have so he gets inspired, and then once everyone's has abandoned Jace, he goes to pretty much end his life in his own apartment, and Victor shows up and starts talking to him about his technology. And something that is we'll talk about later is just his condition and how he is a cripple from the Undercity, and this is like his prime motivator for what goes on with his everything that he wants to do, like helping people. And that's where the quote comes
I love
from.
his entire speech, and which leads to it's like no one's ever believed in me, poor cripple from the Undercity. I was an outsider the moment I set foot in Piltover. I didn't have the benefits of a patron or a name. I simply believed in myself, and that's why I'm here, because I think you're onto something. And then, if you're going to change the world, don't ask for permission. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
he is going
Oh dear.
to, he is crazy. So
You know what's funny? I've seen a lot of a lot of reaction YouTubers to this show who haven't played League. They actually, when they start watching it, they think Victor's a bad guy. A lot of them, because they don't play the game. They immediately assume this guy's suspicious. I don't trust him.
well,
And
mostly
then-
because when he introduces himself, it's like, my name is Victor, and then it holds for like 3 seconds. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but then in episode 3, it's like he predicts like, oh, the crystals only stabilize at a high frequency. It's like, is he a mage? How does he know this? And it's like, well, no, he doesn't. But they think that at the time. And then episode 4 happens. It's like, oh no, he is a good guy, but oh no, now I'm really sad that he's ill. And then they realize, oh shit, no, he's actually becoming a villain. No, 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 no. It's
Yeah,
great.
it's like, oh, what is he?
I love that.
But yeah, a lot of this episode is set up for what happens to him later, or like how his condition worsens, and his whole the thing with him is like he wants to do things now because he knows he doesn't have enough time to do it later.
And he wants and he comes like he grew up, he doesn't want people to like live the life that he's lived because, well, yeah, he's been a cripple his whole life because of the really poor environment that he came from, and he wants to make sure that other people don't, suffer the same like limitations as he would say, as like others. Hence our glorious evolution.
And then you have that's a conflict with him and Heimerdinger, which will come up later. But I don't know if that's brought up.
It's
I guess that it's alluded to when Heimerdinger and him are talking about Jace. Just
and
kind of
Victor's like prodding him on, like saying, could you stabilize the crystals? And it's like, me? Why would I don't need these to
It's
morph
like,
upwards, and
no.
that poor boy has enough of them already.
mhm.
It's like they're on completely different wavelengths, but I don't think we get enough
Mm,
of that in Act 1. That's more of an Act 2. That's when Act 2 focuses on that a lot more.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess now's the time we can switch to Heimerdinger. He's neat in Act 1. I like him.
hmm
He's
Like, the
he's
most
he's
important
cool.
thing we learn is that, well, he's 307 years old, and
He knows,
yeah, he's seen
like
stuff, and
he might
he is very
he might
opposed
come
to
across
magic.
as like
Yeah.
a little he knows stuff, like he's seen it.
Oh, well, as he said, well, he also it gives off the very banger quote of imprisonment. What a curious principle. We can find the physical body, but the mind is still free. I do love a good conundrum. I
hmm
wonder if that's going to be thematically relevant in any way. Ooh,
Gulp.
yeah.
hmm
Yeah, he's got a very minimal role in this season. He's obviously gonna have a bigger role in season 2, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you get the impression that he's almost, terrified of magic, but he's very much of the scientist characters, he's the most socially sensitive. He wants to be he's the most
Yeah.
cautious, and he doesn't, he doesn't think that, science should ever be used to like, you can never no great science ever puts lives in danger, as he puts it. So
hmm
he is a Jace this tech theory at first because he doesn't trust it because of his experience with mages, right? As alluded to in the trial, where it's like it's implied that his homeland was destroyed by magic. Magic corrupts, consumes, it lays waste to civilizations. But then it's like as his opinion is overruled by Mel's and the councils when they usher in the new era of Hextech, which we'll see more of Heimerdinger's updated perspective. But even when like he sees that Victor and Jace have done it, and he is still impressed, he's still like he's not sure about it. He's like, this is not what
Yeah.
Piltover's future
He
looks like.
doesn't, because he recognizes this isn't where it needs to go.
This is where it
hmm
shouldn't go because he knows that it's going to go wrong at some point.
Like
Because again, his experience with magic.
he's seen it before. So,
I
do we
guess
want to
we'll look.
talk about?
Let me
Do
think.
you
If
want to talk
is
about
there
Silco
anyone we haven't talked about it? Yeah. Okay.
before
Okay.
Vampire
Silco?
I guess no. I think Silka's a good one, but when it's done with Silka, I want to talk about a character who doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Afterwards, but yeah,
We
Silco.
have limited time, so I'm
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
so like we only gotta talk about like whoever
I'll
left, like
race through it.
Silco
Okay,
and whatever.
I'll race
Yeah.
through it. Okay, because Silco is my favorite character in season 1. I think he's great. I will say Act Act 1 isn't where I would say he really sticks out to me as much. I would say Act 1 does a really good job of setting him up. Um,
hmm
but the stuff that like really elevates him as a character really only comes in Acts 2 and 3 when we see his
Mm,
relationship with Jinx and how that's changed him drastically as a person. But in Act 1, he's pretty good. And one thing I love about the show, and you can see this if you watch like the trailers for season 1, is the way that it almost sets him up to be like this cliche villain of the week in like the first 2
Yeah.
episodes. Because we barely know anything about him. He appears for like only 3 scenes across the 2 episodes. Like he's barely in the show at that point. It's like who are you? Like what? And
hmm
like he gives that speech about power, real power doesn't come to those who are born strongest or fastest or smartest. It comes to those
mm.
who will do anything to achieve it.
Do
And stuff
anything.
like that. It's like okay, what the fuck? This is just like fucking basic bitch villain dialogue. What the fuck is this?
This is the Clone
But
Wars.
then, but it's actually very deeply relevant thematically.
hmm
Whoopee, I love that.
Mm,
Um, but you don't realize it at first, and then episode 3 is where everything becomes clear because where we start off with the drowning monologue. Yippee, it's peak.
Yeah.
Essentially,
yes.
I mean, does anyone want to comment on that specifically? Because uh, uh,
You
I'll
essentially,
can.
just leave it to you.
uh, essentially, like
Yeah,
his
I
whole
think
drown.
you're the
His
most qualified here.
Yeah, like his whole drowning philosophy, like it's almost like this analogy that he sets in where it's like, you can, you know, either, close your eyes, just open your mouth, let in the water, and every problem in the world will fade away, right? But on the other hand, in your head, it's raging, right? fighting every nerve with madness to win, to survive. It's like, and he in his mind, because like, he's based this experience, off of when Vander tried to kill him years ago. It's like in his mind, he is doing the right thing by fighting back, regardless of his drowning. Whereas someone like Vander, he thinks he just closed his eyes and let it in and let himself drown. And like all the other people who like are helping, like not fighting back against Piltover, because like that's his whole thing. He radically believes he is basically old Vander, but just not like a physical threat. But he shares like all of Vander's old beliefs probably, where he's like, I don't have to win a war against Piltover. I just have to scare them. They won't
You
dare
just have
set
to
foot
scare
in the
them.
underground again. It's like it's because that's his whole thing. Is he even explains why Vander? So his history with Vander, it's very vague, and I like that because I feel like they're going to expand on it in season 2. But we don't actually know why Vander tried to kill Silco, and we don't know when it happened because, well, one could assume that like, oh, he did it because this was after the prologue, and Silco was still he wanted to go for another rebellion, and Vander was like, no, so he tried to kill him. The fact that they hide Vander's face, and in like the few images, like the few frames where you can see it because of like the lightning, Vander looks a bit younger. So I would actually say I think it takes place before that, and that they had a falling out over
Yeah.
different reasons. And when Silco explains it, when he recites it, he says, I hated you, but you kept my respect, in reference to the event. But then he says, but until you made peace with them, which implies that when Vander stopped the rebellion, it failed, and then he made peace with Piltover. That was after when Vander tried to kill him. And
Yeah.
Silco even says that this experience when Vander tried to kill him, that was what taught. He was like, I was left with an understanding. The only way to defeat the superior enemy is to stop at nothing, to become what they fear. And that is him. That is his whole shtick, is he tries to just be really scary and spooky and basically just completely have power over people and just doing anything to achieve it, no matter how many people it gets killed. And just on that note, as a villain, I like just his overall appearance, his aesthetic. I love like the scar on his face.
Yeah.
Just to touch on the facial expressions, especially at the end of episode 3. When you actually pay attention, it's like Silco isn't an easy character to emote because like his left eye, he has no eyelids, so he can't really like express with his eye properly. The scar runs down like the whole left side of his face. It scarred his lips, so he can't like move his mouth properly. So like he can really only emote with like half his face, and yet he still is like so expressive. And I think a lot of that does have to do with like the shot framing, the lighting, and the way it like lights up his face and his eye. Yeah. And just another great detail is over the course of Act 1, you actually see his scarred eye get worse. Like, it becomes more grey as,
Yeah.
like, Singe's medication wears off. Like, it starts with, like, it's all, like, kind of like black and white and murky, but by the end of the act, it's all, like, almost completely grey. It's really, really cool. I like
It's
that.
cool. It's very
Yes,
cool.
it is. Yeah. And an important detail to point out is that the way that Sokka basically has always had his eye on people, and he's always watching people and getting ready to pounce, essentially. Because you may notice when Vi and the kids are going down the lift from after the failed heist, Vi looks up at a bridge and she sees these two people, these two individuals, and they're talking and seemingly having an innocuous conversation. And then one of them, this lady, she looks down at Vi and Vi looks away because she's just assuming, oh, that they've learned about the heist and they're talking about us. I don't really want to be noticed. No, thank you. But if you remember at the end of that episode, that same lady is in Silco's lair. So throughout Act 1,
Yeah.
Silco has been having these kids get stalked by his subordinates. He's been having his goons watch them plan their every move because his original intention was probably just to kidnap them and, abduct them and then use them as leverage against Vander to recruit him to his cause. And that's what Vi learns when she goes back to the Undercity in episode 5. And she tries to take the secret parkoury way in instead of going in directly because she knows that Sokka has eyes everywhere. And this also extends to Marcus because a lovely and awesome detail is when Marcus first meets him, is Silco just refers to him by name without Marcus giving it, and Marcus is like shitting himself. It's what the
I was
fuck?
like, damn.
He is startled, and he's like, "Who are you?" And Silco just doesn't answer his question because he Silco has had his eye on Marcus for some time and probably just knows that he's incredibly weak and impotent and someone who
Yeah.
Silco could very easily manipulate, and that's exactly what happens. Yeah, essentially Act 1 does a really good job of setting up Silco as a very competent and intelligent villain, and then revealing that, okay, he has a bit of an understandable motivation, that's pretty neat. And then the interesting part is when he meets Powder, which, again, Andrew, when you were saying about, the blocking and that, when Silco comes from around the same corner as Powder did, it's like, oh, neat. Very
Yeah.
neat. And approaches her with the knife, and he's waiting. And he asks her like, "Hello, little girl. Where's your sister?" Putting on like a very clearly fake voice, where he's like pretending to sound more
Mm.
gentle than he actually is. And then the total contrast between the way he says that and the way he says, "It's okay. We'll show them. We will show them all."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just very interesting.
It's so
His
good.
reaction to when Powder says, "She left me," that is probably one of my favorite shots on the show. It might be my favorite. And like he
Yeah.
looks up at
Real.
Vanda's body and he likes,
He's like,
he
oh,
he completely
this is how it is.
completely empathizes with her, and that's why he offers her comfort
Yeah.
and a home.
It's
And
also almost like from the villain perspective, he looks at Vander's dead body and he possibly
he re-
comes up with the idea like, what if I took his last remaining
yes,
like remnants of who
yes,
he was and just twist it into this monster,
yes,
which
because
is
that's the
great.
thing. A lot of people, because they do a really good job in Acts 2 and 3 of like making it kind of ambiguous on whether or not Silco and Jix's relationship is genuine or whether or not like he's just using her to
Mhm.
just exploiting her for his own gain, which of
Yeah.
course you know they made the correct choice, I think, in the end.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a very, very interesting. It's an interesting place to go. Silco is pretty good in Act 1, but he's goated in Acts 2 and 3, and I
He
can't wait to
gets
talk
better.
about him then. But
I
He
wish
gets
I
essentially,
could
let's
talk
talk
better.
about his
about.
ending right now, but yeah.
No, that's me. Don't touch him. That's me. That death, perfect. One of the best villain deaths
All right.
ever. It's peak. Right.
Okay.
But
Who
Vanda,
not
else did
after
you
Silco,
want
her
to talk
Vanda.
ending.
about?
Who wants to talk about Vanda?
Uh,
I can
well,
We're
I can
gonna
talk
have to
about
stop
him.
at Vander because I got like limited time here. But yeah,
all right.
Bro is on his screen time limit. Oh god.
Do you want me
Uh,
to talk about him?
sure, you can talk about him, and then I'll
sorry for
go.
having a life
Yeah.
notch.
Imagine.
He has a very he has a very he has a very large character design in the way he's got like very broad shoulders, he's very strong in that sense, and he's a very fatherly figure in that way, and despite the violence in the first in the prologue, and despite how sort of aggressive almost he looks, he's a very gentle character. He's always bargaining. He's always trying to de-escalate things and do things, but he has a line. Like he's like, when Grayson's like, "Oh, give me names," he's like, "No, I can't do that. Like, I have to protect my people." So he's not. I think who says? I think Silco says that he's willing to die for a cause, but he isn't willing to fight for one.
Yes, and that's a great line.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a good
True.
line.
And there's a lot to Vander, and I just love everything that he is to Vi and all of just the
Yeah,
characters
he's
around him.
amazing. He's great.
He's very much like an Atticus Finch type character. He's very capable of doing of partaking in violence, but he just refuses to now because
He's
he
not
knows
that man
the
anymore.
consequences. Yeah, and there's that moment in the bar, which there's his intro where it's like he talks about there's so many subtle things he does uh,
Yeah.
in terms of diplomacy with these two strangers to the lanes. Um, and it also builds like what he cares about and what means the most to him, which is community. And that is what we see when he
Yeah,
says, you
because
really shouldn't piss off the guy that pours the drinks, and then we just
Yeah,
point
yeah,
to
because what I
all the
everyone
people
yeah,
at the
staring
bar.
at him.
yeah, and it also is a way of showing that the Undercity like respect Panda, and I want to say as well, I love that the reason that they're looking at him is because Vander intentionally scrapes the chair along the floor, almost as if like a signal to everyone in the bar, look over
Yeah.
here.
Because
It's great.
after he scrapes that, the bar is quieter. Like, and people are, at least in the sound design, the bar is quieter. There's not a lot of
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
there.
The Atticus
it's-
Finch parallel was interesting to me because, like, considering both their impacts on the worlds that they inhabit, Atticus, tries his hardest to resolve the conflict of To Kill Mockingbird, and ultimately fails, as Vander does.
Mhm. Yeah, and they're both capable of doing violence. Like, you have the scene with Atticus, in the book and the movie, where he shoots the rabid dog, and he kind of like he isn't he doesn't brag about it. He just gets the job done and then moves on and doesn't talk about it.
Yeah. It's a
He's
very
a very capable man, but doesn't want to. And even with in his community, you have Marcus who comes into the bar and starts doing things that upset everyone in the bar. And he just says, "You know what would happen if I put those things on?" And Marcus kind of like gets a little worried as everyone else is looking at him.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Vander looks at everyone else and shakes his head no. And it's such a powerful scene for that, with everyone in the bar,
It'd be a
just
shame if I'd have
ready,
to put
very
them on
loyal
again.
to him.
Yeah,
It'd be a
like
shame if
Atticus,
I'd have to
Vander
put
can quote unquote
again.
fix the problem within his community, but that would not.
Just hard to play.
The whole point of Vander's character is that violence will not change
which
the
he
past.
learned from his experience, on the bridge, but also the way he like frequently, whenever he's like, or like you can tell like all the advice that he's giving Vi is advice that he wished that he had received when he was younger, because it would have
Mhm.
because he completely
Mm.
regrets like all of his actions as like this violent undercity leader, because you can tell it's a lasting reputation. People expect him to go fighting against Piltover when they start shit after the explosion. Like, they're like saying we should hit them back, and they go to Vander like, as if like they're expecting him to want
Mm.
that, and he doesn't. And that's what kind of
It's
leads a few people to lose their
yeah.
faith in him, including Savika, who we haven't talked about. But essentially, she's neat,
Savika.
and I like her introduction. It's really good.
She is
She's
very,
cool.
very neat.
To just
I like her.
to touch on like her introduction just slightly, because it's really the only thing that's like super important about her, is that when she like she says, the Vander I knew, the one who built the underground, he wouldn't be afraid to fight. And Vander like approaches her, and you see like another guy in the bar who was like earlier like really yelling loudly like, yeah, let's fight back against Piltover. He like backs away because he's shitting himself, because he doesn't want to get on the bad side of Vander. But Savika, she stands firmly in her place, and like Vander gets in her personal space. And when she responds to him like saying like, oh, you think, do I look afraid? It's like, no, you look weak. And she like gets in his face. She steps
Yeah.
towards him when she says that, and then she fucks off with like a full-on dog whistle and getting like some of her people to join her. And I
Mhm.
think with the fact that we only see Silka has a few goons in episode 1, and then in episode 3 when they try to kill the kids, and like he has so many, I think what they're
Yeah.
implying is that Savika was the one who recruited those people to Silco's cause,
Mm.
because she genuinely agrees with what Silco is trying to. Yeah, he's trying to fight back against Piltover. That's what she wants, and she agrees with him.
She
that's
is the most
exactly why
loyal character in the show, but
And that is exactly why she saves him from the explosion and doesn't complain about it.
Yep. But
She
we can
just
talk
does
about
it.
that next time.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
But yes, that's essentially it. Savika is neat, and Vander, yes. I guess boy, just touch on
Very
his
good.
death. It's great. And he's definitely Warwick. There we go. That's it. That's
Mhm.
that's basically it. I
In
guess.
Yeah, excellent
conclusion,
job.
this show is
Wonderful.
amazing.
You
You
carried
should
us
watch
off.
it.
Marcus is a good
Thank
call.
you,
He's a good
Pat, so
character, and
much.
Deckard is a
Thank you,
good
Pat.
character.
Thanks
You're
for
very
having.
good.
True.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I wish I could have spoken more, but like I'm tired and I can't remember some things from this show, so like
You think
whatever.
that
Some
you're
things,
tired? It's
and
nearly
it's
midnight
every
for me.
detail ever.
No, but like I do remember it. It's just like I'm tired. I need to take a nap after this.
Bro
I
needs to
Maybe.
take notes.
just want to say, Deckard is the little goon kid who works for Silco, and he's a very cool parallel to Jinx. And the way he gets killed off instantly, despite like he clearly wants power, and that's why he takes the shimmer, because he believes it will make him powerful, and yet Vander kills him like it's nothing. And
I have to
the
wait until the
Vanderkailen
Act 3
Vanderkailen
episode to
is, like,
talk about my two
some-
favorite characters.
No one
Yeah.
asked Nouch.
What?
And the way Vander kills him is like almost like justice for Benzo and Grayson.
All
And
right.
the fact that
Um,
he was gonna kill
yeah.
by. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's
Thanks for
wrap
tuning
this
in,
up.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
This is
Yeah.
incredibly
Thank you
fun to
very much.
record, despite like this
This
being the
was fun.
second attempt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh my
thank you.
gosh.
Next
Well,
week.
like the third,
Oh,
but
sorry, not in next week. Next episode, we'll have a very special guest coming on, and
Hoorah.
another guest as well, who, while not as popular, is equally as special.
Magic.
Yeah, we'll be discussing the current state of the MCU. So, yeah,
Dope.
that'll be
Oh
fun.
hell
I
no,
guess.
we don't want to see this.
We will not be
All right
watching.
then.
We'll be
We will
discussing
not
how
be
Goodbye,
insufferably
Meow Stars.
inconsistent it is, to say the least.
Slop. Garbage.
Anyways, yeah.
No.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
All right.
See y'all in the next one. Bye bye.
Goodbye, Meow
Bye.
Stars.